Hello and welcome back to Recap Stories. Today we're looking at the 1988 nuclear thriller Miracle Mile. I hope you enjoy it, and spoilers ahead. The film starts as we meet Harry Washilow, just an ordinary man about to be embroiled in his worst nightmare. A TV program tells us about the Big Bang Theory and the start of life on Earth. Harry is happy and he may have met the girl of his dreams. He works at the museum, joking with the patrons and doing what he can to make Julie smile. He wants to speak to her but gets cut off by an older couple. He laments the girl he let slip away. That is, until she comes and introduces herself. They head to a restaurant, buying up all the lobsters just to set them free. We see them at the fair and Harry playing at a fundraiser to save the Pan Pacific. They're riding on the tram along the Miracle Mile along with her grandfather. Julie introduces Harry to her grandmother. Harry drops her off at work, and before he can leave, she tells him on their third date she's going to screw his eyes blue. I think the look on his face says it all. He's back at his hotel smoking and thinking about Julie. He drops his cigarette and we see a bird carry it to its nest. Harry sets his alarm so he can wake up in time to meet Julie for dancing. The bird's nest has caught fire and the power goes out in the hotel. Julie is trying to call him but can't get through. She looks pretty heartbroken. Harry wakes up not realizing it's much later than he thought. Changing the channels on the TV, he notices most of the broadcasts are finished as channels stopped airing around midnight back in the day. Flipping to the weather channel, he notices it says 3:45 a.m. He's driving to Julie, blaming himself even though it was really the power outage. He arrives at her workplace and apparently forgets how to drive. Harry notices a ringing payphone but heads into the diner. He asks if Julie's there, but the waitress tells him he just missed her. Julie was pretty much hurt over the whole thing. He asks where she can be reached and heads out to call her. We meet a woman named Landa. She's looking over some kind of codes on a very primitive computer. Harry leaves Julie a message and apologizes to her for messing up the night. The payphone rings and he answers it. A man is on the phone, terrified, as he explains they only have 50 minutes until they fire off their missiles, and they'll get retaliation in an hour and 10. We hear him speaking to his superior as he screams, "Wait," and is then gunned down. Another voice asks Harry who he is and tells him to forget everything he just heard and go back to sleep. Harry looks at the time and heads back inside the diner. He's completely shook up over the call and starts to get a nosebleed. A couple drunk patrons are seen harassing Landa. What he heard cannot be true. He starts telling the diner patrons what he heard, and all but Landa appear to think he's some kind of a lunatic. Landa makes some calls and she appears to have some connections. Fred the cook pulls a gun on Harry because he thinks he just made it all up. He's absolutely terrified. Landa asks Harry to repeat the conversation he had verbatim, and she looks completely shook. Fred comes out with a cart full of canned foods as he's heading to the mountains and says anyone can come with, but to bring lots of cans. Landa tells everyone she dated someone that worked at the Rand Corporation and called some of their friends. She says 4 of the 5 are heading to the extreme southern hemisphere, and that's not a good sign if it's true. It's best for everyone to leave now before the streets are filled with frightened people. She says she's heading to the airport. Harry asks where Julie lives as he can't leave her. Landa tells them they're heading to Antarctica if this is all true. One of the cooks hot wires and takes Harry's car. He asks Fred for a ride to Julie's before they head to the airport, but nearly leave without him. The waitress and one of the patrons are making a list of intelligent people they can bring along with them. Harry notices they aren't heading the right way. He asks Fred where they're going and he says the airport. He lied about going to get Julie. He asks Fred to stop and he says he can't. Harry grabs Fred's gun and Fred tells him if he wants to jump, then jump when they reach the on-ramp. He jumps and is nearly hit by a couple motorcycles. Harry stops a car driven by a man named Wilson. Wilson is terrified, but Harry is desperate. He tells him to pull over to fuel up, and Wilson tells him that station is only for cabs. Harry brandishes the gun and Wilson says, "Oh, okay." At the station, Harry calls Ivan and tells him he has to wake up Julie. Meanwhile, the gas station attendant pulls a gun on Wilson because he thinks he's trying to steal something. Wilson is trying to explain that he's only there because of Harry. Harry tells Ivan to get everyone out front and he'll be there in 5 minutes. The station attendant tells him if he wants gas, it'll be $50. And we're talking 1980s $50. Wilson pumps the gas and Harry tries calling Julie, again getting her answering machine. Police pull up and the station attendant is on edge because of his gun, and Wilson because of the stereo equipment in his trunk. Things become tense and Wilson sprays the police with gasoline. The female officer fires her gun, causing it to spark and light her aflame. The male officer heads over to her and he too becomes engulfed in the flames. The flames head to the pumps and Harry grabs the police car and heads off. He picks up Wilson just as the station explodes. An officer radios the car and Harry answers, asking what the evacuation plans are. The officer has no idea what he's talking about and asks of his current location. Harry just ignores it and explains to Wilson what's happening. They arrive at Julie's building and he tells Wilson to wait. He has to get some people. Wilson needs to get his sister as well. Harry heads up the flight of stairs and he's a little out of shape. He breaks into an apartment looking for Julie. Her grandmother Lucy pulls a gun on him, not realizing it's him. He says they have to wake Julie and she wants to know what the hell is going on. He tells her in 30 minutes nuclear missiles are going to hit and LA will be a desert again. Harry says they're heading to a helicopter that will take them to the airport. Wilson honks for him and says sorry. He has to go get his sister and drives off with the car. Julie won't wake up, so Harry has to carry her out. She's either drunk or a really deep sleep sleeper. They've got 15 to 20 minutes before the helicopter leaves. Julie apparently took a Valium, so she's a little comatose at the moment. Harry puts her in a cart and Lucy and Ivan see one another. They embrace with a hug and Ivan tells Harry they'll get the car and meet them. Harry's pushing Julie in the cart and she starts to wake. She asks him what she's doing in the cart and then goes on to ask why he didn't show. Julie thinks he's bringing her on some romantic date. The grandparents pull up and Harry tells Julie to wait right here. Harry speaks to them and they tell him they aren't going. They're going to spend their final moments together and catch up. Julie is happy to see her grandparents and ask what's going on. They leave and she's still oblivious to everything. Arriving at the building, we see a couple of women pull up carrying some automatic weaponry. Harry and Julie head into the elevator and Julie just wants to go see her grandparents instead. Julie is going on about how she always wanted to see her grandparents back together and Harry's having a hard time keeping it all together and knowing what he does. He says they're going to make it while holding back some tears. They make it to the rooftop, but the pilot hasn't made it yet. Julie is still clueless as to what's happening. He meets a man named Gerstead, who along with being agitated tells him everything is ready to go. They're just waiting for the pilot. Gerstead is pissed because he was promised money from Landa and hasn't seen a dime yet. Julie still has no clue what's happening and Harry tells her if the pilot shows and he isn't there, to go without him. The two women with the guns arrive and they're apparently part of the flight. They're all talking about the oncoming warheads and Julie asks what's going on as she is still completely clueless. Finally putting it together, she yells for Harry. Harry runs to a street sweeper and asks if he knows anyone that can fly ya, and just as he's about to say it, we see one of the diner patrons from earlier and he tells him off. He runs after some people jogging and heads inside a gym. He's going around asking people if anyone knows somebody that can fly a helicopter. He fires a gun stopping an aerobics class, but no one answers him. He finds a man who says he can fly but needs to bring someone. Harry tells him there's no time, but the man tells him to shoot him then. Harry says okay and the man leaves to get his friend. He comes back with what looks to be his boyfriend and asks if there is any problem. Harry says no and they leave. He hears Julie's voice as she's looking for a pilot as well. Harry hands the man the money and tells him where to go, but not to leave without them. He sees Julie in a police car crashing to a storefront window. They find Wilson and his sister, who is in bad shape. He carries his sister up an escalator. Harry and Julie reunite and Julie checks on Wilson. Wilson tells her there's no cloud as Harry told him there would be a meltdown. Julie asks who told him that and he says that guy, referring to Harry. The police have surrounded the building and Wilson's sister says she's dying. She then passes and Wilson is broken. Wilson asks Harry to shoot him so he can be with his sister. Wilson instead succumbs to his wounds and he also passes. Harry is in complete shock and Julie wants to know what's going on. The police tell the cop killers to come out and Julie says, "You didn't kill anyone, did you?" He tells her about the fire at the station and that the cops blew themselves up. Julie says she'll talk to the cops and just tell them they're bystanders and walked in on this. She heads out telling the police she's just a bystander. Harry goes next and the police leave before he even gets outside. People are starting to fill the streets as word seems to have spread. Mass chaos is erupting as people are freaking out. They're running back to the building and Harry sees the helicopter pilot. He tells Julie to go without him as he needs to get the pilot. He reaches the man, but it's not him. People are watching a news report and Harry breaks the glass so they can hear it. A news reporter and his cameraman are gunned down in the middle of the pandemonium. We see complete chaos as warning sirens ring. A man with a gun chases Harry and he heads into a sewer. He makes it to the building and gets in the elevator, nearly closing the doors as he sees Julie. Harry grabs her and pulls her in. She's terrified and he tries to comfort her. There's a loud rumble and the power cuts out. He tells her they won't feel a thing and she says we'll be together, won't we? He tells her he loves her and they start to take each other's clothes off. The elevator, however, continues to climb up. They reach the top and the helicopter is nowhere to be found. Gerstead is all messed up on pills and booze, losing his mind. We see a missile firing off in the distance. A helicopter is heading towards the building. Julie and Harry get on board, but the pilot is bleeding. 3 missiles are seen flying over the Hollywood sign. They explode, causing mass damage. The copter is shaky as everything is being destroyed. It loses control and lands in the water at the museum. The helicopter is quickly filling with water and Julie is terrified. Harry tells her there's nothing up there, trying to calm her. He tells her they'll find them there one day. One final explosion fills the screen and the film ends. That's all for today. If you enjoyed today's video, please subscribe and hit the bell to be notified of new uploads. Thank you for watching and as always, do take care.